Welcome to Seeing Jesus with Paul Miller. I'm Liz Vobril, and I'm here with Paul and our colleague John, director for the Asia Pacific region. We are in the midst of this new series on the wonder, in which we're looking closely at how Jesus lived as a human and seeing in that his beauty, his wonder, and also a bit of what we're called to become as we grow in his likeness. So we have already talked about a number of stories. We started in the garden as Jesus made his unlikely resurrection announcement with Mary. We've talked about Jesus before Pilate, and we have talked about the foot washing with the disciples. And so in our conversation today, we're going to sort of back up and look at those all together and consider what we see there about Jesus as a human, and in particular, how he loves. So, Paul, you want to take us in from there?
Yeah, thank you, Liz. Just thinking about seeJesus' mission of helping the church to become like Jesus, we actually do mean that. Like, it's something that we really want that to happen. And the content that we're going over is one of the pieces of it. And it's a bit like putting a hologram together. Maybe that's not the world's best illustration, but from a hologram takes laser light from 3 different angles and takes a picture of an object, then you get a 3D out of that. And the church has all these flat pictures of Jesus. And what about making, bringing that hologram together? And I know that that's very difficult because I bought a laser in 1970 in high school for physics. And me and my science partner, who was smarter than I, tried to create a hologram of it. It did not work. It's very hard to do.
And especially in the 1970s.
Yeah.
I know. I was going to say, if we lay out that challenge today, listeners, submit your holograms of Jesus.
This is 1970. We tried, and we had given up officially by 71. But I spent $200 of my own money to buy a laser. And
wow,
what would that be like now?
Significant investment in 1970.
Like $1,500, $2,000. And I love stuff like that. Anyway.
Paul, one last thing while we indulge this tangent. I'm sure you weren't creating a hologram of Jesus back then. What were you trying? Just any hologram, any object?
Yeah, I forget what the actual thing we were taking a picture of, but it has to be stationary, and you have to split the laser beam 3 ways, and then it bounces back. I mean, and we had film, but we'd bought a kit for this. What was the place you used to buy science kits from? You could, Scientific and anyway, we're just, but seeJesus has these, the laser of Jesus is so amazing. And it splits in so many different directions. But one of our goals is bringing all, like the dying with Christ, that whole vision of the J curve, together with the person of Jesus, with prayer and the Spirit of Jesus, bringing those together and creating a 3D vision of Jesus, so that the church is actually aiming at something and has the tools to aim at. It's really our passion. And everywhere we go, even when we just give people all the different pieces, they're like, wow, this is really great, and as you'll know, how much we embed it in the Word. So anyway, this podcast and the next one is on the range of Jesus' love, which Liz introduced us to very briefly. And she mentioned the 3 stories that we've done so far, and each of them gives you a little different vision of Jesus. So, with a foot washing, he's a slave. He literally picks up the tools of a slave, the garments of a slave. With Pilate, he's a king. And not only he's being mocked for being a king, but he acts like a king, and he says he's a king. Like, it's all. And the funny thing is, Pilate comes off as this sort of low weight sophist. A sophist is someone who likes to talk big for a show. And yet Jesus is so kingly, so powerful. And then with Mary Magdalene, he's so unobtrusive. She thinks he's a gardener. And so it's this gardener king slave. And so if you put those three, if you take a laser beam and put them together, you have it's just amazing. Like and that's why we're talking about the range of his love, because he operates in so many different ways of relating. We tend to get stuck in our little buckets, you know,
or our ruts, right?
Our ruts,
to get in
and
our
they're
ruts.
good ruts. There's not bad of it, but it's just remarkable to see him. He's just so satisfying. It gives him this sense of when you come in a situation, you're never sure what he's going to do, but for sure it's not going to be what you expect, and it's going to be far better. But it gives him just a whole new view of him as a person.
I think that's what the word that I think of is dynamic. You were originally talking about our pictures of Jesus can be flat. And so to imagine if you could take even 4 lasers, I know there's supposed to be only 3 for the hologram, but you take 4. And so you have Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John coming at these various angles and witnessing and bringing different aspects. Then to see it encapsulated in these 3 roles that you just mentioned, Paul, or gardener, king, and slave. If you just took those 3 and their roles in any kingdom, they're just so varied and so different, and they don't overlap or intersect usually, let alone actually embodied in one person who's dynamically in motion, because the stories we talked about are also relatively closer together in time too. So this is not just like, first he was a gardener and then he grew up and he became a king, or, it's just like,
right.
This is very, condensed of who he is in the midst of a very significant time.
Yeah. I was just thinking of the Passion. He was a slave on Thursday night. Then the next Friday morning with Pilate, he's a king. And then, then at his resurrection on Sunday morning, he's a gardener. I mean, it's the last thing you would expect. I mean, you would put king when he's, you would put him a slave before Pilate, maybe a gardener with his disciples, and a king when he, that's when the triumph, and he's just so. Like it's just exquisite.
He's surprising and confounding in those ways. I was thinking about the ruts, right? Like Jesus sounds like someone who's like, I just think about how, especially in a family context, we all tend to get so familiar with each other that we're like, oh yeah, that's just, this person, this child, that they are going to react this way, and that one, this, like everyone's a little kind of rigid in there. Like this is your family role. But Jesus is so the opposite of that, and in all these different ways. So yeah, he does being human differently from anyone else.
Like, I mean, as long as people are rational, I can love them pretty well, but my range doesn't extend into the irrational. And it's where I have to pray and rely on the Spirit. I like clarity, open dialogue, thoughtful reasoning, deference, like I would be a really good Stoic.
And terrible psych nurse.
Yeah, right. Terrible psych nurse. And I like it just, and that's where I need the Spirit. And it's those situations outside of my range, of my rational, good range, the way people should be. I can get squeaky. Like Kermit the Frog, where you go, I realize that's a kind of an old, Kim loves Kermit the Frog. It's where I have to pray, that I would be quick to listen and slow to speak and slow to anger. Like my tribe of fellow rational people, we can move forward, but to love outside my tribe, just think of it that way. Your personality kind of is your tribe, and to love outside of that is where obviously I need the Spirit within my tribe. I just don't know it. Right. But when I move outside of my range, and so much of what we're doing is talking about is increasing our range.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When you connect what you just said to Philippians 2, with Jesus being so others centered, or, putting the needs of others above his own, the reason for his range is because there are so many different kinds of people, tribes, everything you mentioned. And so he looks to their interest. He enters into their world.
Yeah.
And because of the variation of people, his range broadens because the range of people are broadened.
Yeah.
And that could be not just groups of people, but even as one person could also at times embody a variety of needs. And, and so he's able to kind of change course even in the midst of a conversation with one person.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So what you're saying, Paul, is that our conversation, we're trying to stretch really, like I'm thinking about yoga class, or we're doing a lot of stretching because we really, so if we're going to imitate Jesus, we have to enlarge our ranges.
Yeah. So this is Christian yoga, what you're listening to by the podcast. And that stretching, for those of you have to start stretching more when you get older, and weightlifting. Otherwise, all your muscles disappear. That you're pressing into that range, and there's often pain in that pressing, and it's not something like you accomplish, like you sort of get good at it. And so, but it's wonderful to think of the church growing its range. And of course I should say this is a caveat. Clearly the idea of gifts is that each of us has different things that we're good at within the kingdom, where we love effortlessly. Yeah, but even there, Paul, from going 1 Corinthians 12 to 1 Corinthians 13, he says, but above all, desire love. So you can do well in your gifting, but if you don't have love that is allowing you to move between all the ranges, you're just a sounding gong, as Paul says, or a clanging cymbal. The other thing that came to my mind, John, when you were talking, was how similar Jesus' range is to what Paul describes in 1 Corinthians 8 at the end of the chapter, where he describes all the ways, with the Greeks, I become with the Greeks. With the Jews, I'm a Jew. And it's not Paul changing his character, but he's incarnating in all those worlds. And it's just a beautiful passage on how wide Paul's range is. And it's one of the things that happens, I think, as you learn the work of love is almost always the work of increasing your range. Like for me, it's patience. I like to be in situations that are seemingly pointless and maybe even irrational at times. It's just increases my patience. Like, it's not complicated what we're talking about here. It's just you're learning to be patient with one another, to enjoy one another, and not put people in boxes. And I can't not take a shot at the therapeutic culture, Liz. And I say Liz because Liz has been pointing out how much I take the shot at the therapeutic culture. But and rightly, you just got to be careful. I didn't have too many rants, but the therapeutic vision puts people in boxes, and it narrows your range. Because this person is a narcissist, therefore you don't have to love them and move toward them. And therefore you don't, that fairness trumps range in the therapeutic where you get insights into the other person that are almost always correct. but what it does, it shuts down from your relationship with them. And that I think I have a new example every week of someone inside or outside the church, but mainly because I'm mostly inside the church with Christian friends, where I see the narrowness of them, of that pattern.
I think that's helpful to think about the imagery of, muscle stretching. And, while there is some truth for sure about our strengths, our gifts, I was thinking about Colossians 3, and you have these verses 12 and following. You have these variations or these nuances of love, compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, patience, bearing with one another, forgiving each other. And then verse 14 says, and above all these put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. So love is kind of this, it's the funnel by which a lot of these variations both flow in and through. And I think it's easy, at least for me, to get stuck and just say, well, this is my gift, my strength. And so, if I think of the three roles that you had talked about earlier between gardener, king, and slave, it's like, well, I just tend to be a king. And that's the way I kind of love. Like I'm willing to kind of intrude and speak forth, truth appropriately at the right time. And I'm just weak on being a gardener who leaves space and so as I think of like tools of those three, it's like you have a trowel, you have a scepter, and you have a towel for washing feet. And it's like, I'm just quicker maybe to go to the scepter, and that's who I am, and get stuck in that.
Right.
Right. And so part of it is, I think, both the dual reality of when you're loving all different kinds of people, you're going to have to pick up different tools. But also by the Spirit, you're going to be led to love appropriately and differently in each situation with each person.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's well said.
For sure.
Well, let's dissect it's probably not the best word, but let's look at 4 ways that Jesus has relating. And there are sort of 4 fundamental ways that anybody can relate. And they all have to do with the will. And the first one, for want of a better word or phrase, we've used the term selfless openness. And we'll call that number 1. And that is just simply being willing to let other people intrude into your world. It's we saw that in each one of those scenes with Mary. Jesus stays in the background. So you're the receiver of what's going on. And with Pilate, there Jesus receives Mary's tears quietly. He leaves space for her. Then with Pilate, Jesus receives Pilate's verbal abuse, his mocking, which will get worse, as the trial goes on. And with the foot washing, he receives their pride by doing the foot washing. He absorbs it. And it means that you're, thinking of the modern mind, is sort of anathema that you would endure with a difficult person or a difficult task that will somehow interrupt your happiness. And let me just pause there, because that's the big idea.
So would you, in those examples you just gave, I know it's not the only way of what it looks like, but I'm wondering, is a common response in a selfless, open response in love, a lot of times is it's just quietness, like staying quiet and receiving.
Yeah, it has quite of a range. We could probably make a list of the different activities of selfless quietness, receiving. It's not a passive, it's an active listening.
Well, even quietness sounds passive, but to stay quiet and to quiet my voice, my will, is very active.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yes.
Well, to be receptive, even when it's hostile, what's coming towards you is hard,
yes.
right?
Right.
So that's part of what, like with Jesus, with Pilate, that's he's walking a line there of receiving that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it makes its way into Jesus' teaching. Liz, could you read that sort of that Matthew 5 in the Sermon on the Mountain?
If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. And if anyone would sue you and take your tunic, let him have your coat as well. And if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2 miles.
And each one of those is a situation where you're receiving something painful and you're actually active in that with your love for your enemy. It's not a passive. You're actually thinking about your enemy's needs. Oh, he needs a coat. You know, the Roman soldier that's forced me to go 1 mile, I'll go with him a 2nd mile. It's just it's a saying yes to people. And in our modern world, even forget therapeutic, people think of the management bent, like you want you to manage your life to increase happiness, and you increase happiness by getting rid of and staying away from draining people. And again, there's some wisdom in that. I mean, I'm not, go ahead.
Well, and even Paul, when you talk about sort of a tribal orientation to the world, you still would draw the line. Your value is preserve your own, yourself, your own.
Right.
Like it's not go ahead and consider your enemies as well.
Yes.
And so Jesus is just drawing a really different line there.
That's right. That's right.
I was just thinking about I was talking to a pastor a couple days ago, and he was saying that it's been very hard, and there's a variety of reasons to have people volunteer, let alone lead in the church. And a lot of they're not always excuses, but he felt like sometimes they were excuses was, I don't have the time and I need to create balance and manage my life well. And so we were noticing that some of the most managed people that we know who really, really tightly manage their life never seem to have time. Always seem to be exhausted. So it's like, even when you're trying to manage your own little garden or your own little life, it just doesn't work.
Right. Yeah. I just was thinking that particularly, I'm taking another pot shot at the mind of our age, that because of this value of the schedule and, the clock, our online calendars, they're all really helpful, but they can, and you can be very productive on what you want, but it shuts off all the needs coming around you. I mean, John, you are right in the middle of selfless openness here with just literally on this podcast that I think you could discreetly tell just what's happened to you in the last 24 hours.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I'm in a situation where my sound may not be good on this podcast because I'm recording from a hotel lobby for a variety of reasons, because we're going to serve and love some family members who are in need. And I'm a more structured person. So schedule, time, Paul and I, you and I have joked about, the Japanese in me and maybe the German in you. Right. It's like you kind of have a schedule, you keep it, and so.
Fortunately, they didn't coordinate well in World War II. Or we did
yes. I'd like to think a lot of their efforts went well into watchmaking and other precision things like that. So, right. And we benefit from that. But this trip I'm on, it wasn't really in my schedule. And so finally, when I felt like, okay, we need to take it, even as we scheduled it perfectly, in the middle of getting ready to leave, the schedule changed again because of the needs of the people involved. And I realized the old me, who was less sanctified would have stuck to the schedule. Hey, I already made one change.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're going to stick to it. Right.
And again, it's good. It's helpful to count up the changes too.
Yeah. Like one was a lot for me. and I'm not perfect, but what I like to say is I'm also not the same person I used to be by God's grace. And so in this short amount of time, a 24-hour period, I don't know how many changes have happened in the itinerary, the schedule. And even today, they've already changed again. And it's because of people's need, and actually in this case, it's because people are intruding on my schedule. And they are either knowingly or unknowingly interrupting things because they want something or they want it a certain way. And so just being able to receive that, I mean, as we're recording, it's ministering to my own soul, because as we're talking about the range of love, I'm running all of the pictures of Jesus or the lasers of the hologram through the lens of what I'm currently experiencing. And I'm hoping gives me wisdom. It's giving me conviction, but it's like this stuff we're talking about is not just like theoretical, nice stuff. It's not just only biblical and it's theological, but it's like, this is my life, like literally as we're talking.
Yeah, it really, that's great. And your life, and especially the last 24 hours, looks a lot like the way the Gospels feel when you read them. And it's one reason I think scholars have not studied the person of Jesus, because it seems so disorganized. Like they love Romans because it's got this logical, kind of movement to it. But they try to impose kind of a scholarly or organization on it there's nothing wrong with this. They call them, I think their word is pericope or something like that. Like they try to organize all the incidents, but no one has a sense of why the Gospels are so wicked disorganized. And it's because it's Jesus' love. It's how he loves, because the Gospels have this meandering quality that actually, if you look at it, it's actually, you could plug it into your life. Here's a quick survey of John. He's at a wedding and they run out of wine. John 2. He's tired and thirsty from a journey and asks a stranger for a drink. John 4. His brother thinks his ministry needs marketing help. John 7. He bumps into a blind man sitting at the city gate. John 9. A good friend dies and he visits his sisters. John 11. His friends argue with one another and he quietly intervenes. John 13. He's falsely accused and a judge is a bully. John 18. It's also ordinary. And some of the scenes in the Gospels, you'll see, one of my favorites is probably Mark's description when Jesus I think, is it Mark 4, where Mark 5, where Jesus come back to Capernaum. The father of this girl who's sick comes to him and says, you got to save my daughter. And then he makes his way. The crowd is thronging him. This woman comes up and touches him. It's this big interruption. Jesus pauses, and then someone, a messenger comes up and says, the girl has already died. Don't bother. But Jesus says, no, we're going to go. And then he brings I've condensed a lot of material. He brings her back to life, but you get a sense of this life that's pressured. It's loving under pressure. Like it's and the pressure is coming from the outside. And he's taking the time at every point. There's this layering of love, one on top of the other, that should be characteristic of the normal Christian life.
That's assuring, because when you use the word, if scholars look at the Gospels and say it feels disorganized in terms of looking at Jesus, or it feels a little chaotic,
right?
Then that describes, I think, most of our lives.
Yeah.
Right? It feels disorganized. My life feels disorganized. At times it definitely feels chaotic. And there's some normalness to that for sure, which is wonderful to know. But it's Jesus's fault that it feels that way to scholars.
Right.
And yet what ties it all together is Jesus. What brings the chaos together is not a beautiful PowerPoint outline that centralizes all these pieces, but it's embodied in a person who's not stationary, and that's why it feels chaotic, because he's moving and he's loving and he's and so it's hard to follow unless you really pay close attention. And that's why I appreciate what you've done with most of your life's calling, Paul, is to pay very close attention, because when he moves, it's easy to still look for the slave. And I'm like stuck in there, and it's like, oh, he's moved on to love this person as a king or as a gardener,
right?
And I miss him.
Yeah, yeah. Liz, what?
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say that meandering, it makes me think about the concept of, is it a bug or a feature, right? Like, it's easy to see the disorganization as like the problem. Like, yeah, he could have benefited from a really good like travel agent, someone managing like, no, actually today he's not able to come help your daughter. He's on his way to do this. You can book an appointment, use our online form to schedule your healing with Jesus or whatever. But that's not that. It actually, by design, he's responding to real life unfolding around him. So that's something we can learn from too.
Yeah, I love the analogy of a bug or a feature, because in other words, that the deeds that come out at us are we think of those bugs, and what you see in the gospel is they are features. This is how it works. And what it does is that, think of a church of 200 people or a family that really loves the Lord, is that they, but you've probably heard me say this before, that a church of 200 people that is reasonably healthy ought to be running about 10,000 ministries. And by that, I mean the checker, the UPS delivery man, which are, varies a lot. Just the coworkers, the difficult relative. These are all ministries, not in that formal sense, but they're ways of loving people.
Yeah. And Paul, very much if I imagine myself on staff at this 200-person church responsible for our 20 featured programs that are short on volunteers, then I can feel like your stubborn commitment to reach out to your UPS guy is just really annoying, because it keeps you from being able to do this thing, or your love for your grandchild, or whatever you're investing your time in that's keeping you from the programs, feels like it's the bother, not the feature.
Yes. Yeah. That's great.
I'm going to hold on to that as I'm looking and meeting certain people, even today and this week. It's like in my head, automatically, I'm already thinking they're the bug, and I got to keep thinking feature. You're a feature.
Yeah, that's good.
It's going to be a whole different trip, John.
Well, thank you, Liz. So next week we'll dive into a couple more of Jesus, his features, the way he loves. So we did selfless openness, and next time we'll begin with good walls.
Yes. And we will send you a chart with all of these, but we'll go ahead and save that, since we've only really gotten to this one category. We'll save that for our next episode. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy the features that come into your lives these next few weeks, and we'll be back again soon with another episode.